Hi there, my name is Kristen, and the first thing I want to show you is how the interface for the Adobe programs InDesign, Illustrator, and Photoshop are very similar. So I've got InDesign open here, and you can see I have a header over here which is responsive. So depending on what I have going on in my screen, what's up in this heading bar may change. Over here I have my toolbar on the left. Over here I have another toolbar that is related to Windows. I'll explain that more too. And then up at the top we have some general headings on the main navigation bar. So InDesign will be anything that deals specifically with the program. Ideally, whatever you set here will show up with every time you open the program. For example, under Preferences, I can go to Units and Increments, and I can make sure that it says inches because that's what most people are familiar with in the US. Excuse me. So there might be some other things that you can spend time exploring this and see if you can change anything that you need. So then there's File. That has to do with anything particular to this file, which could be saving, making a copy of it, exporting, importing, and changing the document setup, and then packaging, which we will talk about later. Edit is typical find and change things, spell check, using command keys. Notice how to the right here you can see what the command keys are, certain things. So if you find yourself doing the same thing again and again, like copy, Command C, or cutting, Command X, you can use those command keys. Layout has to do with the way margins, different aspects of the layout are there to guide you with that. Type is anything dealing with words on the page. Objects would be shapes and different effects for those shapes, modifying shapes, adding pictures. Table is very simple gridded tables where you can manage data. View is what's on your screen, what's showing up. So right now I can go in and I can show you that I can hide all the guides. So now you see that those guides have gone, and then you can go back in and go to guides and you can hit show. Notice how it's not checked, so you can check it back off. Window refers to these pictures on the side here. So I'm going to pull this one off, which happens to be hyperlinks, and I can click that box and it disappears. So if I need that back here again, I can go into interactive and go to hyperlinks, and there I can get that hyperlink box again. I am going to drag this icon, and notice how when I drag it over here, a little blue horizontal line shows up that lets me drop it in there. So again, I can pull something off of there. I can expand that window with the double arrow here or shrink it down again, and by clicking the X I make it disappear. So if there's something that you need here that's not showing up, you would go to Window to find it. You will not know what it is that you need right away, so what I always recommend is that you go to Workspace and use the Essentials Classic version, and that will show you more things than other options there. Okay, so this is an InDesign, and the thing about InDesign, it's a vector program, which means that it's drawing lines and shapes through a formula, and I will explain the contrast in a moment. So when I have a vector-based document, Illustrator is also a vector-based program. So the thing about InDesign that differs from Illustrator is I have multiple pages, and I can drag down more pages. And what you see here is the spine of where two pages are put together. So InDesign is used for managing mostly printed documents. Now I don't always have to have a spine here. I can go back up into File and I can go to my document setup and go and change that, where I unclick facing pages and I say OK. So now I have individual pages still here, but they're not created with that spine. So I'm going to hit the yellow circle here and diminish this for a moment. And we're going to visit Illustrator. I'm going to hit New File. Just like in InDesign, I can go to Set Preset Sizes. So under Print, I can pick Letter. You can see it showing up in points. I like to use inches, so I can go here and go down to inches. So then it turns to 8.5 by 11, and I can say Create. Okay. So here I do have a page 8.5 by 11, so it looks a lot like what I just showed you in InDesign, but I am going to zoom out drastically here, and I'm going to show you the difference. So this dark gray box is my artboard. So if you think about your desk might be very neat or it might be very sloppy. So if you have orderly, you'll have all different piles of paper, or you might have things scattered all over the place. So this is my 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I can add other pages by going to this artboard tool. This is called my artboard. So I can add multiple pages and I can have quite a crazy artboard where everything's overlapping each other. So you might be very neat and tidy. And so when it's blue and highlighted, I can then delete those. And I'm just going to stick to my one page here, and I'm going to zoom in. So that's the big difference between InDesign and Illustrator. InDesign keeps it more organized, orderly pages, where Illustrator lets you be more free. And it's the nature of the program. Illustrator is more of creating artwork, and InDesign is the program where you organize all that artwork. So now we're going to look at, and so the headings up here are very similar. So you start with the program, which has the preferences like I spoke about before. File has anything to do with saving, copying, exporting that file, editing. Objects have to do with putting an object on the page, a drawing on the page. Type. Select effects are unique to Illustrator, and we'll go into those more in detail. But you see View, again, has to do with what you're seeing on the screen. Window relates to what's going on in the right. So you'll notice in Illustrator, there's a lot more options for those right windows. And these are all types of tools that can really help you to illustrate really beautiful images. So now I'm going to diminish this and open up Photoshop. So I'm going to say New File. Again, I can go to Print and I can pick out a page size. So I am going to pick out Letter again here, and I'm going to Create. I've got to move my little picture here. Say Create. All right, so now I've got an 8.5 by 11 page. So Photoshop is different than Illustrator and InDesign because it is raster-based file. So you've seen images that are blown up really large and you see lots of different pixels. So Photoshop is all pixel generated. So I can put in here a drawing, a photograph, and it will have a certain size to it. And if I blow that up, you're going to start to see those pixels. Where when I create artwork in InDesign or Illustrator, it's these lines that are created by a formula. And if I blow them up, the formula recalibrates so that I can make something like a logo that's really small and can be on, your pencil. Or you can take that logo and blow it up really huge to go on the side of a bus. And the quality will remain consistent because the program is resizing it. So there are layers in all of these programs, and the layers will work a little bit differently in each one. So I'll talk about things like that with each program going forward. But this was just an overview of how the interface is very similar for all three of them.